Hey everybody, in this video I'll be going through the entirety of Act 2 and the Altars, which begins for me on day 29 and then 26 grueling days later finishes up on day 54. So similar to my Act 1 playthrough, this obviously it's not the only way you can go about completing it. However, I'll provide commentary about how I personally went about it and then provide some explanation on the various new features and mechanics and altars and all the various unlocks that I utilize. Also, a quick spoiler warning here. Obviously I'll be going through and showing you what happens in Act 2, but there are some big story events that happen in this act with some pretty consequential decisions that you need to make. So if you are concerned about that and don't want to see that quite yet, again, just kind of a quick spoiler warning there.
Celebrate our progress, but it looks like we've reached the limits of a constructive discussion regarding our different views.
We can't agree on the playlist. I say nothing beats good old rock and roll, but it seems our tastes got pretty rotten in some branches.
Alright, so starting off at the beginning of Journey 2 as we make our way to the next location where Act 2 takes place, you can see there's already some divisiveness in the crew on taste in music. However, that's going to soon be seen as a very small problem compared to the upcoming decisions that will need to be made. After a bit of bickering between the crew, you begin to all reminisce about your old high school rock band Frickle Pickle and decide to just make your own music instead. This updates the Time to Unwind task where you need to go now construct a guitar in the workshop. Meanwhile, a call from Maxwell also comes in, who wants updates on the situation, as well as to voice his displeasure with Lena's increased involvement. So after you kind of smooth things over in that call, head back into the kitchen with the newly crafted guitar to work on lyrics for a new song, which you will then perform with your crew, which takes you into Act 2.
If I could take another turn, my life would never be the same. If I could get another chance today.
We're not moving. Something has to be blocking our way again. The navigation readings are curious.
Curious. In what way?
I don't know exactly, but something's distorting them.
Okay. Nothing cures a hangover like taking a walk. Wanna go and check that thing out, Jan?
Act 2 began on day 30 for me, and first order of business was just kind of a quick inventory check on my supplies. I'd noticed I was running a bit low on food, so got my botanist busy in the greenhouse, and also made sure that I had active research going. I decided to use another planetary sample for the advanced non-metals mining outpost. However, that's not really integral to any strategy or anything, kind of personal preference. Going back in time, I maybe would have chosen the suit upgrade first, as that unlocks a lot of useful abilities for exploration. Going outside, you'll quickly see the problem in front of you, which is this giant gravity distortion blocking your way, and this kind of plays the same role that the lava river did in Act 1. Exploring from here, you've got a couple different paths to take. The area in Act 2 is going to be significantly bigger than what you saw in Act 1, and it may feel a bit confusing at first, but essentially it's broken out into two sides, each having its own set of resources. There's also a ton of drill areas that you'll run into, so if you can prepare a bunch of drill cartridges beforehand, you definitely won't be sorry. So starting with the area opposite the base entrance, you'll encounter your first new anomaly, which speeds up time while you're in it. Talking to the scientists will give you more details about this and tips for destroying them, but depending on your upgrades, you may just want to try and avoid them for now. There's a target you can use your illuminator on, similar to the other anomalies in Act 1, that you'll see once you're inside of it, but again, having illuminator upgrades makes this significantly easier, and this is also where that suit upgrade comes in handy, which unlocks a variety of upgrades for that. Progressing past that, you'll begin to come across the various resource deposits that you'll find on this side. Here's one for organics, and then right nearby that is another one for enriched metals. Continuing on, yet another new anomaly you'll have to deal with in Act 2, which is the energy wall, and this will completely drain your battery when walking through it. However, there is an ability you can unlock after getting the second suit upgrade, which will reverse that effect and actually fully recharge your battery when you walk through it. Once unlocked, just shoot the orbs you see floating within the wall using your illuminator, walk through the wall, and you'll instantly have a full battery. And then heading back outside from one of the other entrances, you'll come across another new obstacle in Act 2, which are much higher walls to climb. This one requires 6 energy, however this cost can be reduced with research, but not only that, it also requires the hook upgrades, so even if you do have the required energy, you may not yet be able to climb it. And next to this wall is where the first Interal vein can be found for a Planetary Sample. However, the trail leads you up that same wall to collect it, so I leave it there until I'm able to get that hook upgrade researched. A bit further down, you'll find the third new anomaly of Act 2, blocking an enriched metal deposit, which kind of seems to pulsate and grow larger as you get near it. This is another one you may just want to try and avoid until you get some Luminator upgrades complete, but it'll have 2 orbs you need to destroy, which only seem to appear at varying distances.
I suppose destroying it will be easier if you time your movement accordingly to the pattern in which it pulsates? Huh. I'll keep that in mind. Thanks.
So for now, I just kind of run around it and head up to this cargo crash where you can find the first damaged chip of this area, allowing for an additional altar slot once you get that repaired and upgrade the quantum computer. So with that, for my first day, I did a bit more exploring and random running around and then headed back to base to report my findings to the scientist who, as mentioned, will have some thoughts on all of the new anomalies you came across, as well as the gravitational distortion blocking your way. This will lead to your next task under the Great Anomaly mission to now craft a gravity sensor for the scientist so he can gather more data to come up with a potential solution.
The base should have blueprints for a device called a gravity sensor. Once you craft it, it needs to be placed somewhere high to cover as much ground as possible.
Beginning day 31, I fortunately had enough material for the gravity sensor already, so I crafted that first thing. However, after taking it outside, the sites that the scientists marked on the map were quite a bit higher than what I've explored so far, so I'll have to deal with that a bit later. The next thing I wanted to do, though, was repair the damaged chip so I could get another altar going as soon as possible. But having used most of my metal on the gravity sensor, I needed to do a bit of resource collecting. So having not discovered or set up a metal outpost yet, I was able to find some shallow metal deposits nearby the base to quickly mine enough for that. So now with another Qubit chip created, I head to the quantum computer to upgrade that to level 3, which unlocks one more altar slot as well as another tier of research upgrades. For my next altar slot, I decided to create a doctor, which I think ended up being a pretty good choice, although you could probably get by without him. I ended up not using the infirmary very much through the act, so didn't really take advantage of his 8x healing boost. Funnily enough, though, in my case, I think it probably would have been more accurate to label this altar like a chef or a cook, as he also gets a speed boost in the kitchen, so I pretty much had him in the kitchen the whole time making food throughout the act. And then later on, he also unlocks a new craftable food item called Feast, which I'll talk about when we get to that point. And then finally, choosing the Doctor also unlocks the ability to make the Shrink altar, which is very helpful in maintaining positive moods for all of your crew. So while waiting for the Doctor to grow in the womb, back outside for some more exploring. This time I wanted to check out what was on the opposite side, where I found a ton more resources, including another deposit for organics, as well as one for minerals and metals. So I decided this is where I was going to start setting up my outpost, but by this time it was getting a bit late, so I turned around and started heading back to base. During this time, I also began research on the hook upgrade, along with the cheaper climbing upgrade, so I could begin making my way up those higher walls. And then once back at the base, the technician wanted to talk, who complains of not feeling well and having a splitting headache, which is going to be a bit of foreshadowing on the problems yet to come.
And a bad stomach, too. Ever since that damn party.
So waking up the next morning, you get a task that something's going on in the kitchen and you should investigate. There you'll find the crew that's gathered around the table with Molly the sheep, who has mysteriously died overnight.
I knew there was something wrong with her. I saw it. And I didn't do anything. Let's at least honor her with a moment's silence.
After discussing with the crew, it's up to you as the captain to decide next steps. Given the unknown cause of death and risk of potential contamination, there's a lot to consider. I chose to cremate her. However, I'm not sure if choosing other options actually has any real impact on the outcome, as after this, the technician will then remind you that it's mission procedure in this scenario to perform an autopsy by the scientist. So I leave it up to him to begin that process by adding it to the research queue under the mission tab, temporarily pausing work on the hook upgrades. Also, as a side note, later on there is a gravesite outside the base for Molly that you'll be able to visit later.
I couldn't have chosen a better place for her myself.
So, with that disturbing news to start the day, the doctor was now ready to be woken up, so I visit him and go through the introductory dialogue. And then I spent most of the rest of the day just kind of beginning to build out my mining operations. So surveying the areas for outposts and then setting up a network of pylons to connect back to the base. Also, as mentioned earlier, you'll probably want to make sure you've got a good supply of drill cartridges, as there will more than likely be some rock walls you'll want to remove. Then it was back to the base to talk to the scientist to learn the results of the autopsy, where he'll inform you that the sheep had some sort of odd mutation in its brain causing a hemorrhage. Still not exactly sure of the cause though, and given all the environmental variables like radiation exposure, he requests you build an MRI machine that you can put in the infirmary so all members of the crew can be tested. So with all of that going on, I figured it best to finish the day by unwinding with a movie down in the social room. This time I chose People Who Always Finish Your Sentences. You can guess what that one's about, which at least temporarily helps improve the mood of everyone in the base.
Finally, a good movie.
Hey man, I was thinking, have you ever noticed how often we finish each other's sentences? Yeah, we have lived together for way too long. Right. I feel like we've probably had every conversation two people can have. Right. So we always know what the other one is thinking. Right.
The next day, I unfortunately woke up to some more bad news as the dormitory broke down overnight, causing the crew to sleep poorly and not feel well from smoke inhalation. This also highlighted the fact that the dorm only sleeps 4 crew members, and now with the addition of the doctor, he has no place to sleep, so he was on the floor. This seems to have spared him from illness though, and this was also my first opportunity to assign him to the infirmary to begin healing everyone. So while that was being taken care of, I moved some things around the base to make room for a second dormitory, while the technician then repaired the original. After that, I tried to go outside and get my metal deposit up and running, but basically wasted the rest of the day while I tried to scan for the outpost location. Not having any battery for a scan wave, I think I surveyed pretty much every single inch of the area, but not the drill site. So returned to base without making much progress there. However, at the very least, the entire crew was now back to full health, thanks to the doctor. But I noticed the technician was feeling a bit annoyed when looking at their statuses, so I ended the night with a game of beer pong, which seems to have improved his mood.
All right with your eyes?
The main thing for day 34 was research on the hook upgrade was complete, so I got that crafted and then fast traveled to my minerals outpost. Now being able to climb high walls, I could bypass the energy draining wall that led into the metals deposit. This meant I had battery available to use ScanWave to finally find the placement area for the outpost, set up connecting pylons, and begin metal production. And then back at base, the refiner wanted to talk, who requests an upgrade to the gym, giving you the sound mind and a sound body side task. So I add that for my to-do list for another day. On day 35, taking a look at the altar statuses, you can see they're beginning to worry that they haven't been scanned by the MRI machine yet, and many of them are feeling angry or upset. So that immediately gets put to the top of the priority list. However, I'm still quite a bit short on the metals and minerals needed to craft it. So I assigned 2 altars to work those outposts for the day, and then I head out as I wanted to revisit the Planetary Sample location I found when I first arrived. So again, utilizing the hook upgrade, I climb up that wall that we couldn't reach before and make a fast travel pylon at the top. Not only does this give you quick access, but I don't have to waste battery climbing up here each time I return. And then continuing to follow the trail using the illuminator, I find the anomaly and collect the planetary sample. I decided to utilize this to begin research on the suit upgrade. Given the multitude of new obstacles you come across in Act 2, I'd recommend it, as not only does it increase your battery and help protect against radiation, but it also unlocks a bunch of really helpful upgrades further down the research tree that will make dealing with everything outside the base significantly easier. And then exploring this area further, you'll find a minerals deposit, and then continuing down a bit more, the area will open up to what appears to be trees growing at the top of the canyon. We'll come back to that a bit later. And here you'll also find a cargo crash containing a damaged chip, unlocking yet another altar slot once it's repaired. But that's going to have to wait, as we still have the priority of crafting the MRI machine, and while exploring, our altars were able to collect enough metals and minerals to get that done. However, it does take 6 hours to build, and given the time, I unfortunately can't get it done today, but I finish as much as I can and then leave the rest for tomorrow. So first order of business was to finish up the MRI machine and get that installed in the infirmary. Once installed, you can interact with the desk in the module to begin scanning the crew. However, you have to wait until work hours are over to do it, so we'll come back to that later tonight. Meanwhile, keeping with the theme of upgrading modules, I also go and get the weight training equipment built and then install that in the gym for the refiner. After that, you just need to wait for his next workout, and then you can go down and talk to him about it. So with progress on both the MRI and gym tasks on hold, the question of what to do next was quickly answered as a bunch of modules all started breaking down at once. So the rest of the day was pretty much just spent crafting repair kits while helping out the technician with repairs. At that point, work hours were over and the refiner was finishing up his day down in the gym, so I go down to see how he likes a new upgrade. Expecting a happy response, he's very appreciative of the gym and feels good physically, but after using the equipment, he realizes that his problems are more emotional. This is where you learn about Ben, who in the refiner's timeline is his significant other rather than Lena. You have quite a bit of dialogue about this, which ultimately concludes with him asking if you can reach out to Lucas. In his timeline, Ben also worked for Ally Corp, so he wants to know if he exists in this timeline as well. And then finally, to end the day, back up to the infirmary to scan the crew and see if what happened to Molly is just an isolated incident or actually a widespread issue. Speaking to the scientist, he informs you that results won't be ready until the next morning.
Not before I finish scanning everybody. You're the first one, so after we finish, you can go to bed and come back in the morning. I should know more by then. Okay, ready? Here we go.
Anxiously awaiting the results, after waking up, I beeline straight for the scientist, who shares the news that everyone on the crew has the signs of the same brain mutation that Molly the sheep had. Everyone but you, leading to the most likely conclusion that this is being caused by something during the altar creation process, whether that's the Rapidium itself or perhaps just a side effect of the rapid growth that's induced to do it. Either way, not great news, and the crew obviously takes a pretty big morale hit from this. And then, in somewhat tragically comedic timing, next on my to-do list was to repair the damaged chip I found the other day and make another altar. So, given the current situation, I thought a shrink would be the best bet to help out with the emotional state of everyone, as he can be put inside the Contemplation Room module to comfort and improve the mood of the other altars. This also upgrades the computer, allowing for the last tier of research upgrades to be unlocked as well. After this, you can also talk to all of the altars to try and help console them. Speaking with the technician specifically when asking what you can do to help, He reminisces about a park bench that he used to sit down at with Mom and look at trees. This will give you the green Refuge task to try and find something to help comfort him. Remember those trees I said we'd come back to earlier? So heading back to that area, I continue to explore a bit more. Here you find the metals deposit for this side of the map, as well as another cargo crash containing a bong, which you can give to the refiner, as well as a class photo, which you can give to the botanist. Then backtracking to the minerals deposit, you'll find a path that takes you up into that area with the trees. After looking around for a bit though, you'll soon find out that they aren't real. It's actually just a projection of the Holo chip from another cargo crash that you can pick up. This is going to unlock the ability to research the park with a bench module. It's found under the base tab, which paired with the Holo chip creates a relaxing escape that alters can use to improve their mood. And then returning to base, a call with Lucas comes in. Due to all the gravitational interference, he's been unable to establish a connection until now, and eagerly asks for updates. Along with everything else that's gone on, you inform him of the MRI results and ask for help finding a cure. However, there's no opportunity here during this call to ask about Ben for the refiner. And then after that call is over, it's time to wake up a more than likely brain mutated shrink and get him up and running. And then finally, to end the day, the doctor wanted to talk, so I head over to him. He wants to prepare a feast for the crew, which will eventually unlock a new food item that you can craft. But for now, you just give him 3 raw food to get started.
A feast to celebrate our mortality on, let go of our fear. What do you say?
Young, I'd like to talk to you.
Moving on to day 38, you awake to a broken kitchen, which turns out to be caused by the doctor, who apparently woke up early to prepare his feast. If you head up and talk to him, you'll have a little bit of dialogue about this, which will then unlock the feast as a new craftable food item. Every time you make this, it'll feed the entire crew the next day and give them a big morale boost. It costs 5 mush meals as well as 30 organics. You'll also now need to repair the kitchen though, and later that night you'll be able to call everyone in and end the day with a meal that the doctor has prepared. Normally I'd assign the technician to work on repairs for the kitchen, but he's still in pretty bad shape after the MRI results, with his status now set as angry, so it was time to build a contemplation room and put the shrink to work. Assigning the shrink to the module and then an altar to one of the pods will gradually increase their mood over the day. You can do this without a shrink, however it's not going to be nearly as efficient. So while he spent some time in there, I played the role of repairman all day, with a few different rooms breaking down. It was all worth it though, as checking his status a bit later showed he was now feeling okay. After that, a call was available from Lucas where I was now able to ask about Ben for the refiner. He agrees to search Ally Corp records to find any info on him, but given he'll need to view data he doesn't have authorization for, he's a bit hesitant. During this, he does mention that I've been making additional Rapidium arcs, which kind of sway him to helping, so I'm not sure if that conversation would have gone differently had I ignored that optional task.
Those arcs you've collected, I know you're taking this mission seriously. So, I guess I can at least think about it, okay?
And then once this is all done, it's pretty late, and you can call everyone into the kitchen to enjoy the doctor's feast that he prepared. Afterwards, talking to him and going through a bit of dialogue will complete the task.
You were right. It did everyone a lot of good. I'm glad you appreciate the importance of such things.
Starting day 39, I decided to send the doctor to the Contemplation Room for a bit. During the dialogue with him after the feast, it's revealed that the mom in his timeline is still alive, and after learning that she's died in this main timeline, it's brought him down. So spending the day in there will help him get his mood back up. After that, I had finished up research to upgrade the base to tier 3, so I wanted to get that done. However, I was a bit short on minerals, so while I had an altar working the outpost, I went out and found some shallow deposits to mine and kind of speed that up. Upgrading the base not only gave me some more room for modules, but also increases the organics tank by 250 units. This will also allow you to craft a third Rapidium arc if you want to go that route, and also important to note, you now need 3 radiation repulsors if you want to keep the benefit of not needing radiation filters. One thing I also hadn't gotten around to yet was to build an advanced non-metals outpost after that research completed, so I made one of those and replaced the standard one that was being used on the minerals deposit, which gives me a 40% boost to resource collection there. Ending the day, a call from Lucas came in who had news about Ben. Turns out he does in fact work at Ally Corp in this timeline as well, so I can go talk to the refiner about that a bit later. But first, another call comes in, this time from Maxwell. He shares a potential solution to the brain mutation problem that's a bit unsettling and will require some deep consideration on your part. A cure can be made, but you'll need healthy brain cells to make it. Quickly volunteering to donate some of your brain tissue, Maxwell informs you that a small sample isn't enough. In order to go this route, you'll have to create another alter solely for the purpose of essentially killing him and then harvesting his healthy brain before it mutates. Obviously, being a bit shocked by this suggestion, Maxwell ensures you that there's a way to create a blank slate alter he refers to as a Tabula Rasa that would never be woken up and would have no memories or awareness. All of this is strictly between you and Maxwell as well. Given that Ally Corp still doesn't know about the alters, you need to do this in complete secrecy, and them finding out may have some serious repercussions.
If I can trust you.
I'm putting a lot at stake for you. Of course you can trust me. Ally Corp doesn't have to know anything.
So with that choice now weighing on your shoulders, it's time to go tell the refiner about Ben. During this dialogue, there is an option to either tell him the truth or to lie and say that Lucas couldn't find him. I chose the truth option, so I'm not sure the outcome of lying, but this conversation then led to unlocking the Optimism trait.
Thank you. Never stop believing the future can be bright. I'll try.
Finally, I head over to the scientist to discuss the solution that Maxwell has come up with, as I'll need his help to reprogram the quantum computer to create the Tabula Rasa alter, as well as just kind of carry out the entire procedure. So, being the scientist that he is, he's totally comfortable with the whole idea. However, he does suggest maybe consulting Lena first to see if there are other options, which after completing this dialogue then gives you two new tasks to choose from. You've got Tabula Rasa, where you go ahead with Maxwell's plan, or a second opinion where you'll need to break Maxwell's trust, inform Lena of what's all been going on, and then hope that she can come up with a better solution. So first thing in the morning, I begin research on the quantum computer hacking that's required to make the Tabula Rasa alter. Still not quite sure what I was going to do though. A call from Lena is available, and I decide to finally tell her everything that's going on with the alters. You do have a choice to be not quite as truthful, saying it's you that has the brain mutation. And even then, after choosing the true option, you can just say that it was a sheep. At this point though, I figured I'd come clean and just lay everything on the table. She understandably takes things pretty poorly, but agrees to look into possible solutions, and for the time being, not to tell anybody about it.
In that case, I'll do my best not to fail you. I just hope it's not too late.
Thank you. Bye.
Ending the call there, at this point word is out about the idea that Maxwell has come up with, and you can talk to the crew to get their thoughts on it. Most of them are pretty appalled by the idea and puts most of them in a bad mood, so once again back to the Contemplation Room and using the shrink to help cheer everyone up, who is actually now in a great mood after I gave him the Yerba kit that I found during Act 1. So while swapping alters in and out of the Contemplation Room, I began exploring a bit more, as there were still some areas of the map that I hadn't uncovered yet. Progressing up further where I have my minerals and metals outpost running, I discovered something that was pretty surprising, which was the surface exploration vehicle that apparently landed here as part of the original crash.
Our surface exploration vehicle. So this is where he landed.
Nearby, you'll find a new movie titled Mind Wipe, so excited to watch that later, but while looking around the vehicle, you'll also get some intriguing dialogue that it looks like someone's been up here already and has been tinkering around with it, so I'll leave you in suspense with that, as we'll come back to that a bit later in the story.
Could it be someone was trying to fix it?
So with that curiosity, next to the vehicle, you'll find the Rapidium Deposit for this side of the map, so we can finally start working on getting that up and running. However, I'm a bit short on pylons to make that work, so for the time being, I just survey the area and build the outpost. And then continuing further up, you'll come across another energy draining wall blocking your way, as well as a bunch of anomalies. But this will finally take you to one of the spots you can place the gravity sensor, which creates this strange grid and begins collecting data.
This looks like a good spot to use the gravity sensor. Come and find me when you have a moment.
Finishing the day back at base, Lena calls with news that she has an alternative solution to Maxwell's plan. This would require a neural implant to be placed in each altar, which has been reprogrammed to provide the necessary treatment. Their original use was to control prison inmates by regulating their emotions, tracking their whereabouts, and basically being able to control them. So choosing this option will solve the problem without the need to create and sacrifice the Tabula Rasa altar. But it will come at the cost of not only exposing the altar's existence and breaking Maxwell's trust, but also essentially giving complete control of their brains over to Ally Corp.
Hang on a second. Are you saying you want me to implant tracking devices into my alters' heads? That means the corporation is gonna find out about them and get full access to their brains. Do you realize how vulnerable it would make them?
Look, I'm starting to think this is becoming a little bit too much about your alters. You asked for a way to cure them. I did what I could. Yes, it means coming clean to the corporation, and yes, it also means giving them control.
Right.
So ending the call, and with this new option to consider, the implant will now be a craftable item in the workshop, and you'll need to make one implant per altar if this is the route that you want to go down. You can also talk to all of the altars about this solution and get their feelings on it. Although still not thrilled, most of them do seem to be more receptive to this idea compared to creating the Tabula Rasa.
Implants. Talk about jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire.
And then while talking to the technician about this specifically, you'll also see a dialogue option to mention the vehicle you found on top of the canyon. He'll admit that he's been up there tinkering around with it to calm down. However, there is still a bit more to this story, so again, we'll come back to that later.
I need to stay sane somehow. Holding a heavy-duty screwdriver in my hand calms me down.
And then finally, talking to the scientist about the gravity sensor. With the data that it's now transmitting, he can come up with a solution on moving past the distortion, but needs some time to research. Shortly after this, he also wants to talk again about another topic. Given the brain mutation, he's concerned that he won't be able to complete all of his life's work, so requests personal time to write down and document all of his ideas. This will activate the optional task Focus Time, where you can block off 24 hours for him to do private research on his own. So now, under the mission tab, we've got 3 things that we need to prioritize. The neutralizing towers for the gravity distortion, QC hacking for Tabula Rasa, and private research for the scientist. Given I was still pretty unsure of the path I wanted to take with the brain mutation, I temporarily paused work on QC hacking and gave the scientist his private research time. Day 41 was Magnetic Storm Day, so first order of business was to get everything prepared for that, making sure I had enough repair kits and radiation filters in stock, as well as get some more pylons crafted, as I wanted to get the Rapidium mine up and running so I could take advantage of the enhanced output that you get while mining during a storm. So once I was ready to go, I head back up to the top of the canyon, and while looking for pylon spots to connect that, I found 2 new items from a cargo crash, some marked cards and a university hoodie. I'm not sure who the cards go to, but I was able to give the hoodie later to the scientist. So after collecting that, I got to use an item I haven't used yet, which is the Pylon Hub. This cost 5 normal pylons to make, but it's got significantly longer range, which allowed me to link up to the fast travel pylon down at the bottom near the base. I then connected this over to the Rapidium Deposit and linked it up to the outpost.
I noticed we're missing a few rad filters.
After that, I quickly stopped by the base just to check on things, made sure I had 2 altars working repairs and nothing was kind of going haywire, and then spent the rest of the day mining for Rapidium. Heading back for the night, I overheard the technician and the botanist discussing the 2 options for the brain mutation in the dormitory, sounding like things were still pretty split among the crew on what the best course of action was, and not really helping much in my own wavering on what route I would finally decide to take.
Maybe that way we'll finally agree on something. So it's all down to who's better at out-talking the other side, huh?
Continuing the storm into day 42, I had taken a pretty big dose of radiation mining all day yesterday, so I only did a bit more at the Rapidium Outpost. Mainly, I spent most of my time inside the base just kind of helping out, crafting more repair kits and radiation filters. Meanwhile, I had heard there was another argument breaking out, this time in the research lab where the technician is demanding more details about the results of the MRI scan. Choosing to side with the technician on this, which is what I did, will take the scientist off research for the remainder of the day while he writes up a report for all of the altars.
Really?
And then finally, with the storm almost over and emotions starting to run a bit high, I decided it was time to watch another movie. This time we're watching Secret Alien. On day 43, we start getting a warning that the sun is getting closer, but along with that comes more resources and additional Interal veins to collect planetary samples. And then a quick check on my crew shows that everyone's now in a pretty good spirits from surviving the storm, as well as enjoying the movie last night, so that's all good. But the botanist wanted to talk, so I go see what that's all about.
Hey, you wanted to talk?
After quite a bit of dialogue, you find out that in the botanist timeline, Lena was actually pregnant with their child, so he's been struggling with the reality that that no longer exists. While reminiscing about their shared relationship during this, he asks if the real Jan remembers a novelty axe that Lena bought him on one of their trips together. This item was really important to the botanist Jan, but not so much to you, and your memory of it is a bit vague. However, to try and cheer him up though, you get the optional task called Blast from a Past of attempting to recreate it somehow in the workshop. Not sure where to start. You can ask the scientist for help. However, he's not super thrilled about being pulled away from his research for something like this. During the conversation, I was able to use the reliance trait as one of the dialogue options though, which may have helped sway him in my favor. This leads to the scientist mentioning that there was a photo taken of you holding the axe, which gives you the idea to call Lena to see if she still has it.
There was a photo. It's a shame I got rid of it.
So heading over to the communication room, a quick call with Lena says she's not sure if she still has the photo, but she'll check and let you know. One interesting thing about this though was that I mentioned during the conversation that this is a favor for one of my altars, so I'm not sure if this would go the same way if I hadn't let her know that they exist while getting the neural implant solution for the brain mutation.
For that altar of mine who in his mind, he's still with you. He's struggling with his emotions.
But anyway, after all of that, we still have a lot of the day left, so I head outside, and given I hadn't made an Enriched metal deposit outpost yet, I figured I'd do one of those real quick, just for some additional resource opportunity if needed. So I set that up in the spot near the base. I then began exploring more of the other side of the map. Since I'd reached the top where I placed the gravity sensor, I was kind of curious what would be on the other side, so I set my sights on that. Along the way, I found another cargo crash containing a lucky keychain that I gave to the shrink, skipping rope, which I give to the refiner, and then another movie titled Future Ex-Girlfriend. A bit further up is yet another cargo crash containing the body swap movie and also a trading card.
Another movie. This one was actually on my pile of shame.
But that's about as far as I got before needing to head back, where I found the altars gathered in the research lab with the scientist presenting his results of the MRI as requested by the technician. However, it didn't seem to help his mood much.
That's it? A few brain pictures with randomly colored areas? This is a joke.
Thanks for appreciating my hard work. I loved spending a whole day on this.
And then after that, it seemed like all the drama moved to the dormitory, as I think 2 events got combined into one. First, the refiner and the doctor were arguing about radiation exposure from enriched metals. Oddly enough, the refiner was the one voicing the concern. Maybe he was just trying to get out of work, but he wants to remove all enriched metals from the base while the doctor wanted to stockpile them. Since I didn't really have very much of the metal to begin with, I sided with the refiner and just got rid of it all. However, I'm not sure if this task is bugged or something because I was never actually able to complete it during this act, and I'm pretty sure I met all of the requirements. Anyway, though, another argument was happening at the same time. This is where the alters were discussing the pros and cons of the 2 brain treatment options.
And this isn't something I can politely analyze on a fucking whiteboard. I'm out.
This gets derailed by the technician, who basically puts everybody in a bad mood. And then with the technician's emotional status now set at furious, I put him in the contemplation pod along with the botanist. So after dealing with all of that, Lena calls back saying she found the axe photo and will send it over, so that's good news. Here you also have an option during this conversation to bring up the fact that she's pregnant in the botanist's timeline, which I did, but that just kind of made everything awkward, so I'm not sure if that was the best choice. But then finally, one more problem to solve for the day. I noticed one of the dormitories was about to break after that phone call got over with. And with emotions already kind of running high in the state they were in, I didn't want to risk a bad night's sleep for anybody, so I built personal cabins, which is something I hadn't made yet. The description for these say they're assigned automatically based on seniority, but it just kind of seemed random on who was using them, so I'm not entirely sure how that works. Day 44 was all about helping the alters. First, the shrink wanted to talk, who says he's starting to feel a bit burnt out from dealing with everyone's problems, which honestly, can't really blame him with everything that's been going on. And he asked if I could help brew a special tea for him to help unwind. This unlocks the optional task, Special Kind of Substance, and there will now be a new item you can grow in the greenhouse called Special Plants, and a new item you can craft in the workshop called Special Mixture. Once you make both of these items, you can then brew the tea in the kitchen. After this is done, you can meet back up with the shrink to enjoy the tea together, which is indeed special, taking you on a mind-expanding journey that ends with you learning the chill trait.
This is wonderfully disgusting, Jan. Even better than my homegrown original. How do you find it? Peace, harmony, chill.
Next on the list is the technician, who definitely needs something to cheer him up, so I get to work on the Park with Bench module for the Green Refuge task. Once built, you just need to wait for him to visit it, and then you can go talk to him to complete the task. Funnily enough, during this conversation, I got the opportunity to use the new chill dialogue I just learned. However, even this doesn't really seem to be enough to cheer him up, as he ends up saying he just wants to be left alone.
I think I just want to be alone. Okay?
That being said, his emotional state is now back to feeling okay, which is a big step up from clenching his fists and furious, so I guess that's good. This room isn't just for the technician, though. All alters will now visit this area in their free time, which will give them a positive emotional boost.
Oh, interesting. I have to try it sometime.
And then during all of this, the scientist also finished up his personal research for the focus time task, so I went down and talked to him about that. Not only was he grateful that I allowed him the time to do it, but during the process, he says he also figured out a way to make radiation filters more efficient. So now, in addition to the 10 metal that they cost, instead they'll only cost 20 organics rather than the normal 40. And then finally for the botanist, now having the photo of the axe, it can be crafted in the workshop. However, it takes 10 hours to make, so I worked on that as much as I could. However, I had to leave the rest of it to finish tomorrow. And then as I was heading to bed, I got an alert that the technician was having a hard time in the dormitory. Making my way there, I found him talking with the shrink, where he was clearly having a tough time.
We should all create a bucket list to take our minds off.
Day 45 was pretty straightforward. The first half of the day was spent finishing up the remaining 6 or so hours left that I had on the axe. And once that was done, I gave it to the botanist, who was very appreciative and set his mood to calm, relaxed, and enthusiastic. And during this state, you can see it increased his work time from 9 hours to 12. Next, still wavering back and forth on what route I wanted to take for the brain mutation, I began crafting the implants just so I have those as an option in case I decide to use them. Given I have 6 altars that I need to make them for, that means 60 metal, 180 minerals, 120 rapidium, and 12 hours of craft time, so I complete what I can for the rest of the day. So after waking up in the morning, I head back to the workshop to finish up the remaining implants. After all 6 are complete, the scientist wanted to talk, who is beginning to have some concerns that he'll never be truly recognized for his work given that he's just an altar. So during the conversation, I try my best to ensure that he'll get all the credit. But after that, I switch topics and inform him that the neural implants are complete, where during this conversation, he kind of steers me back to picking the Tabula Rasa option after making some points against using the implants.
We have other options. What if it concerned you? Would you inject a tracking device for convicts into your own brain?
I mean, would you want an implant in your brain that can control you, know your thoughts, and track your every move? So with that decision still in limbo, the scientist informs you that we can no longer kind of linger on this and you've got 3 days to finally decide. So here I am with 2 options still on the table. You can create the Tabula Rasa and sacrifice his life, or basically remove free will from all of your altars and give control of them over to Ally Corp. So at this point, after wavering back and forth for quite some time, I think I've finally decided that I'm going to use the Tabula Rasa, trusting Maxwell that it really will indeed just be an empty vessel and that he'll never wake up, and all of my altars will be able to continue living their lives. So I head to the quantum computer and begin creating that altar. And then with that decision made, at least for now, the rest of the time remaining in the day, I built a 3rd Rapidium arc as well as a 3rd radiation repulsor, so I no longer needed to use filters again, which was nice. This leads to a call with Lucas letting him know about that 3rd Rapidium arc and an updated task called Everyone Counts to make even more arcs. Ending the day, I found the altars all gathered in the social room discussing the bucket list activity that the shrink suggested the other day while consoling the technician. Seemingly going well at first, it's once again brought down by the technician, who puts everyone in a bad mood.
I wish I was never born.
What are you all staring at? Did I ruin your party?
Back to the pod.
Yeah, he's got a point. This was inappropriate.
And then consoling the doctor afterwards, who was particularly down, I had the option to use the Optimism trait in this dialogue, which seemed to help lift him up a bit.
The best books have a happy ending. And I like to think our story would make a decent book.
Yeah, maybe you're right. We're not doing that bad.
So, yes, here it is. We still need to wait a little for the brain cells to mature fully. How long? They need to be ready for our meeting. We're running out of time. Do you scan the brain for the mutation? Yes, it's all clear. And the cortex shows no signs of activity, which is good. What happens then? We extract the brain tissue, process it according to Maxwell's formula, and start administering the treatment. Of course, we will have to dispose of the body. Whoa!
What the fuck?
Looks like I didn't use enough sedative. Let me just, There. Damn it. I hope it didn't activate the cortex. What if it did? What do we do now? Just take a deep breath, okay? I've used enough sedative to put a horse to sleep. So even if his cortex did light up for a moment, it's inactive now. And I'll make sure it stays that way. Look, we can't get thrown off balance. Not now, when we're so close. Okay. You're right. You can't tell anyone about this incident, okay? They need to take the cure. I know some of them were against it. This would make them freak out even more. What incident? I didn't see anything. Did you? Okay. Good. Let's just allow the brain cells to mature and communicate the matter calmly to everyone at our meeting. Sure. Fine.
So that just happened. With Tabula Rasa now created and hopefully permanently sedated, you still have the option to change your mind and go with the implants. The meeting happens in 2 days where you'll then need to gather all of the alters and make your final decision. But for now, you still have a bit of time to weigh your options. So after that rather eventful morning, I still hadn't collected the new planetary samples that had respawned on day 43, so I headed outside to go collect those. And then while getting that first planetary sample, the scientists had completed research on the Neutralizer towers, so I stopped by the base real quick to talk to him about that. This will update the main mission task where you'll now need to create 2 towers in the workshop and then place 1 on each side of the canyon, similar to what you did with the gravity sensor. This will destroy the anomaly and then finally allow you to pass, but setting that aside for another day, I went back out to collect the second planetary sample. So now with a few planetary samples in my inventory, I decided to use them on the second suit upgrade, which increases your battery to 10 charges and radiation resistance to 50%, but it also allows you to then begin research on the energy gate inversion. This will fully charge your battery when going through those energy walls rather than draining it completely. And then finally, I ended the day down in the social room to watch Mind Wipe with the crew.
Hi, my name is David Peterson. I was abducted by aliens on June 1st, 2017, and this is my irrefutable evidence. What do I know that no one else knows? Everything.
This goes on interesting.
Yeah, right, SpaceX. They don't want you to know any of this. And I can prove it! I'm not afraid of the government.
The next day, I headed out to get the third planetary sample, which was over by where all of my organics and minerals outposts are. After taking care of that, I hadn't reached the top area of the other side of the map yet, opposite where I placed the gravity sensor, so I wanted to get that explored just to make sure I hadn't missed anything. And once reaching the top, I found the placement area for one of the 2 neutralizing towers.
Okay, this looks like a good spot for the tower. And the other one... Yeah, I need to build it on the other side.
And by that time, I'd used up most of the day already, so I returned to base and went to sleep. Tomorrow was going to be a big day, as it was finally decision time where I needed to decide if I was going to use the Tabula Rasa or the neural implants.
Okay, people. I wanted to hold this meeting to tell you that, well, we finally might have a cure for your condition. Okay. Let's hope it's a good one. Let's hold off celebrating till we hear it. We can use a treatment based on healthy brain tissue. For that purpose, we'd need to use the Tabula Rasa you've probably all seen occupy a space in the womb. So, you decided to go down that path. Great! Why don't you just hand us over for experiments already?
Let's be rational. Since we already have the Tabula Rasa, I say we use it. What else are we gonna do with an awareness-free body?
Use it? I don't like the sound of that. He's an alter, just like us. Even if he has no memories, how can we be sure he doesn't feel anything? I agree that we should be rational. It's just that there's something so cold-blooded about this. I feel it's a line we shouldn't cross, because once we do, there's no going back. Just tell me we're not doing this. We're not taking his brain out. It's sickening. We have an alternative. Neural implants. It's a safe and efficient solution, but you'll need to agree to have a corporate device fixed in your heads. We've got nothing to hide, do we? Maybe we just need to not think about it so much. We haven't done anything wrong. Why should we be afraid? So, let me get this straight. You think letting the Corpo exploit our brains might be a more humane solution? Let's stop wasting time and get on with it. We knew from the start we weren't born into a fairy tale. Exactly. We weren't born into a fairy tale. Because we weren't born at all. We were just created to prolong this loser's meaningless life. Truth is, there is no good way out of this mess. The branching was, from the start, it was, Make way for the doctor. Is he unconscious? He's breathing. Get him some water. It's getting worse. We need a cure now. What's your call? Let's go for Maxwell's recipe. Good. I'll get Tabula Rasa ready for the procedure. Keep your fingers crossed. Okay, everything's prepped. He's not showing signs of waking up again? No, nothing. I've given him more sedatives just to be on the safe side. You want to say something before I proceed? I don't know. Just do it. Okay, here goes. And that's it. Almost. I'm taking it to the lab to create Maxwell's magic potion. Is he? Yes. He's dead. But don't worry, he didn't feel a thing.
So as you can see, I initially chose the Tabula Rasa option, which comes with some very severe consequences. Starting off, you'll see that 4 of the altars now have yellow lock icons next to them, indicating that they've basically permanently shunned me, and there's nothing that you can do to reverse that. They're even locked out of the ability to assign them to the Contemplation Room. Going forward, you can still assign them to work, but you'll notice that their work hours have been cut significantly, some more so than others. Fortunately though, this is a video game, so I decided to reload and try the implant option instead.
It's getting worse. We need a cure now. What's your call?
I'm putting my money on Lena's idea. Good. I'll gather everyone and inject the neural implants in their heads.
Let's hope this works. All right, let's see. This should go here, and... Are you okay? I think so. At least it's not causing me any physical discomfort. And it looks like it didn't kill me. Maybe I underestimated Lena. Great. Maybe in time you'll just be able to forget about it. What's done is done. All that matters now is whether we can continue our mission safely. Time to get the others, I suppose. I'll leave you to it.
So after going through the cutscene again, this time I ended up with only 2 locked altars, so this was clearly the more popular choice of the altars that I had, and this is what I ended up sticking with. Apparently the technician, he's just going to be pissed off no matter what you do, and the scientist was good with either choice. So with that finally out of the way, and now forced to live with a disgruntled technician and shrink, I refocused and began working on the first neutralizer tower, which once complete, I ran up next to where I had the gravity sensor and got that placed. The day after your decision, you'll find the altars gathered in the kitchen again if you want to overhear some of their feelings about the procedure. Also, kind of a fun side note is I noticed that the painting I made while drinking special tea with the shrink was also now hanging above the sink.
I never thought I'd feel like a cyberpunk clown.
My first ever work of art. I called it Universal Awareness. It seemed like a good title then.
After that, you can talk to the altars more about it on an individual basis if you want. However, communication with the locked altars is limited. And then a magnetic storm was coming the next day, so I spent some time preparing, crafting more radiation filters and repair kits. Also, given the technician's now limited hours, I had to pick up the slack a bit on some of the module repairs.
Another arc? Cool, man.
So with the magnetic storm beginning, I basically just stayed inside all day, and now with limited hours from the technician, tried my best to keep up with radiation and repairs. At this point though, really the only thing left to do was to build that second neutralizer tower, so my primary focus was getting enough resources for that. If you haven't researched the ALX to metals conversion upgrade yet, I'd highly recommend it, as you can turn all of those anomalies you've destroyed outside into a steady supply of metal by using the refinery. So I get that queued up and then have the refiner begin working on those. Day 2 of the magnetic storm, I now had enough resources from the ALX conversion, so I get the second neutralizer tower constructed and spend the rest of the day doing much of the same, staying on top of radiation and repairs. On day 53, we get an updated warning of the sun's approach along with another Interal vein spawn, so definitely don't want to forget about grabbing that planetary sample before leaving, as we're getting really close to the end. All that's really left to do at this point is head up to the other side of the canyon and place that second neutralizer tower that I built yesterday. So I make my way up there first thing in the morning, and once that's constructed, pretty much all of the main objectives are now complete. After you get enough organics in the tank to move the base, you're free to start the journey at any time. But again, don't want to miss that planetary sample, so on my way back to the base, I make sure to grab that as well. So it's day 54 and we've now got 5 days until the sun gets here, which is no problem because we are getting the hell out of here today. My only real issue was that my base was now too big to move given that the tank only holds 700 organics, but I required 751 to start the journey. I could probably remove some modules, but I had the tier 4 base upgrade unlocked along with the required resources to upgrade it, so I just did the base expansion instead, which increases the tank to 800. Now I just needed to go mine a bit more organics and we'd be good to go. So after that, once you meet all of the requirements, the only other thing that you need to do is make sure that you assign 4 altars to the neutralizer slots during work hours, and then you can run up to the gravity sensor and begin the journey. Also make sure that you've got plenty of extra storage space to pick up your outposts and pylons. And with that, you are now on your way to Journey 3 and Act 3. I will play out this final cutscene, so spoiler warning as some crazy stuff is about to happen, but hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Worked. We can get out of here. I'm sorry, hon.
Wake up, sleepyhead. Bedtime's over.